Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pro wrestling mecca of the world in Cleveland. Dashingly, strikingly sexy, ever so smooth, talking trash, talking host Nick, and with me, as always, is nobody because bi-weekly. You can find it on Twitter, but the main ways to find it are through iTunes Podcast X, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can hit up the show at the Twitter page at ProW Podcast, which you can see in the link down below. Um, I think that's it. I think that's all of the main ways you can find us. I'm sure I'm probably missing a whole bunch. I don't have the information in front of me like I normally do. So for that, I apologize. But nevertheless, it is PWPTV. A little disclaimer. Sorry about last week. I didn't even give an explanation on the Twitter page. Essentially, I was sick and I am kind of a little bit congested, but I'm on the right path. I'm doing a lot better than what I was. And also, it is October, so I'm wearing my Stranger Things T-shirt. One of my favorite shows. So yeah, that's where I was last week, and for that I do apologize. I do wish that I gave you guys a heads up, so I apologize. My bad. Anyway, we are going to just carry on and just plow through the feuds that are too sweet. And in this edition, we are going to be talking about the feud of Shawn Michaels and Bret the Hitman Hart. Now, I talked a little bit about their Survivor Series match that happened in 1997, the Montreal Screwjob. Everyone knows what happened. We all know the logistics, let's just call them. And so, because of that, the main question, I guess, is now where exactly did the feud start and where did it end? Well, to really pinpoint this, the feud itself, first off, I just want to preface this by saying their feud was one of the hard hitting battles of the 90s. It was a feud that I think on paper you think, wow, a technician against a high flyer, that's going to be pure madness. It's going to be a work of art. Really, it wasn't. And it not to discredit the work of HBK or Bret the Hitman Hart, it was more or less just a feud because it had so much personal heat to it. And Vince loves those kind of things. If you and another wrestler do not get along, Vince McMahon will see dollar signs. And that's no different here with Bret and Shawn. Um, their feud essentially started in 1996. I believe it originally first started in December of that year, and they were I can't remember exactly. I don't have anything up, but there was a huge, I believe, like a six-man tag, and they just from there it kind of just emanated. They really uh, were attacking each other, going ballistic. And I'm paraphrasing everything to kind of get to the Montreal Screwjob, and then we'll go afterwards. But you have their feud going on, and it's a hard hitting feud. They had a match at WrestleMania, the Iron Man match, the infamous now Iron Man match at WrestleMania, I believe 10 of 97, and it was insane. Iron Man matches were not uncommon by any means, and especially back then. But I do think that when you have these two guys in there who do not like each other, who you want to pit against each other for an hour, is just insane on WWE's part. But you let the magic build, and that's exactly what happened here. Fall after fall, it was great, and it led to Shawn Michaels' very first run as WWE champion, which led to Vince McMahon on commentary saying the boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels, and it was such a nice moment too. I believe the final count was 4-3, maybe it was something like that. It was one where Shawn just barely edged out Bret, and it was tough because looking back at it, a lot of wrestling fans were they had mixed emotions. That was weird. My phone just said it was reconnecting. But if you were to ask any wrestling fan what they thought about that night now, years later here in 2018, I think the response is going to be very different, but in a very good way. Um, I think back then a lot of fans probably like even though Shawn was over and it was obviously set that he was going to be the guy, there was still that talk of, well, Brett still has a lot left in the tank. He has a lot left to offer. Maybe now's not really the time we should start crowning Shawn. Shawn took that belt and he ran with it. He made it his own. And that's rare to see someone in the very first reign just tear the house down the way Shawn did. a lot of times when you do that, you're either going to be a Hall of Famer or you're going to be something special. And Sean knew that. And I think the whole world, we were lucky enough to realize that. Bret, however, on the other hand, he was not in the same boat. Bret thought that Sean was egotistical and cocky and all this other stuff. And Sean accused Bret of sleeping with Sonny. You know, you will leave your opinions to that. Um, so there was just so much animosity between them that I think that it came down to Bret just not wanting um, to give up that spotlight. And I don't like saying that because look, Brett's a very prideful person, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, there is a problem with not wanting to do business, and Bret Hart just did not want to do business. And you can't, I don't say you can't blame him. You can blame him because it was totally his decision. Just at the same time, um, it was very, very problematic to say the least when you are Bret Hart and you're in there with Shawn and you're two guys who don't like each other to begin with. And I think that WrestleMania match, it just left a really bad taste in Bret's mouth to the point to where not only did he not want to do business for Shawn, he didn't even really care to work in WWE at that point. And it just boiled and it festered throughout the summer and into the fall. And they were on and off again. They had little mini programs here and there. Um, they were kept apart, but then they were brought together whenever they needed to make money, and they definitely did. Um, Sean, he went on to feud with Sid and Vader and all these other guys who were either Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. Brett, on the other hand, I don't want to say he stayed stagnant during this time, but he was in his own little zone, and I don't, and I think maybe that had something to do with Brett wanting to leave WWE. But eventually, it all came to a head at the Survivor Series '97. And again, I'm not going to go into full detail about the Montreal Screwjob. You can find that video on our channel. But I will say that clearly the Montreal Screwjob did not help, but at the same time, Brett did not help his case. So it's a little bit of both ways. And I don't see it changing, you know? So they had their match at Survivor Series. Brett leaves. WCW totally mishandled him. We know how that goes. And basically, for those of you who don't know, uh, Bret Hart goes to WCW and he sat out the first year, I believe, of his contract because WCW just didn't know what to do with him. And then they just shoehorned him into the NWO storyline because the NWO storyline at that point was on his dying legs. And he had the infamous match with Goldberg to where he got to where Brett got the concussion. Um, so WCW just did not handle him correctly at all. Sean, on the other hand, he after this feud, he feuded with The Undertaker, threw out his back in the casket match, feuded with Stone Cold to drop the belt to him at WrestleMania so he can take the 4 years off. And Sean refound himself. And later on, he reconciled with Brett. And it was a really nice moment to see them both in the ring in 2010. And um, Sean saying, you're still wrong and I can drop you at any time I want, but I'm not because time heals all wounds, or whatever he said. And they shake hands, they hug. Sean sort of went for a super kick, but he was in that super kick position. He didn't do it, but he was in the position to do it. And so it was a really cool ending, I think, to their huge rivalry dating way back in 1996 and then 97. And I don't know where these guys are left off at because now you have Sean coming out of retirement for Crown Jewel. And now you have Bret Hart, who's just kind of Bret. Obviously the stroke played a huge factor into his health, but I think Bret's just okay with not being in the spotlight anymore. I think Bret kind of understands that what he did in '97 probably wasn't the smartest thing, and Sean thinks the same thing. Vince does, Triple A, everyone who was involved in Montreal. So it was a really amazing, incredible feud. Again, I highly recommend the WrestleMania match. It wasn't WrestleMania 10 because WrestleMania 10 he wrestled Razor. So I don't know what year it was exactly. Maybe it was like 12, maybe 11, around there. Very highly recommend that match though, an Iron Man match for the WWE Championship. Amazing match. So anyway, that will wrap up this edition of PWP TV. But before I end, I just want to say that I have to tell you guys about an incredible wrestling show that is happening this weekend, Sunday, October 21st, at 6:05 Central Time at the Tennessee State Fairgrounds in, rightfully so, Tennessee, and that is NWA 70. NWA 70 is the 70th anniversary show of the National Wrestling Alliance, provided by Jeff Jarrett, exclusively on Fite TV. And you can use the hashtag NWA70 on fire. Join the action this Sunday, again, exclusively on Fite. And that will wrap up this edition of PWP TV. You want to hit the show, the Gmail's ProWrestlingPod at gmail.com. Once again, ProWrestlingPod at gmail.com. The Twitter page at ProW Podcast, once again, at ProW Podcast. You can find the show on iTunes, Podcast Act, Spreaker, Amazon, Alexa, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. My name is Nick. Catch the show NWA 70 exclusively on Fite TV this weekend at the Tennessee State Fairgrounds, Sunday, October 21st. And I will see you guys next time.